The 2025 NFL Draft is just 1 week away, so I'm going to unveil my dream first 3 picks for the Philadelphia Eagles. Coming up next right here on the Locked On Eagles podcast.
You are Locked On Eagles, your daily Philadelphia Eagles podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We thank you so much for making Locked On Eagles your first listen each and every day. Welcome in, Eagles fans, to this Thursday edition of the show. It is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use the code in all capital letters, Locked On NFL, for $20 off your first purchase. The draft is 1 week away. I can't believe it. And if the Eagles pull off what they've done the last 4 years in a row, then the dream scenario will play out. I think you can make the argument in 2022, maybe even 2021, 2022, 2023, and 2024. 4 straight draft classes. I think if you would have told yourself how those drafts would have played out the month before the draft, the week before the draft, and then how it played out after the fact, years later, you would say this has been the ideal outcome. Every single draft gave you the best case scenario. The results you wanted were the results that happened. I think we all wanted Devontae Smith in 2021. Now, maybe you wanted Pat Surtain or J.C. Horn like I did, but Devontae was a top 3 target of mine, and they landed him. And then with the second pick, they take Landon Dickerson. I liked Asante Samuel Jr., Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, but I liked Landon Dickerson. Ends up being a stud. Like, that is a dream top 2 picks. And then you get Milton Williams in the 3rd round, and he's a huge reason you win the Super Bowl. So that was a dream draft. Same with 2022. Sure, Jordan Davis wasn't my favorite pick, but I would have said that a week before the draft, if they trade for A.J. Brown, that's not my dream draft. Like, yes, it is. Of course it is. I mean, that was not even a scenario that was on my radar. I thought my dream was to get like a Garrett Wilson type. So that panned out exactly the way I wanted to. And, stealing Nakobe Dean in the 3rd round when I thought he was a day 1 prospect. Cam Jurgens in the 2nd round was the closest thing to Jason Kelce that we've seen coming out of a draft in a long time, stylistically. Then 2023, the fact that they get both Jalen Carter and Nolan Smith, I thought you had a chance at one of them, and it was more likely Nolan Smith, who you would have had to take with your top 15 selection. There's no way Jalen Carter falls past the top 5. He falls to 9, you get Jalen Carter, and then you're like, okay, well, there goes a Nolan Smith type. Nope. Nolan Smith falls in your lap with a 30th overall pick. I would consider that the dream scenario. And then last year, I thought there was no chance Quinyon Mitchell would fall. Maybe he would fall in trade-up range for the Eagles, but for him to just fall in their lap where they don't even have to trade to get him, and then to get Cooper DeJean in round 2 when I so badly wanted them to just take 1 corner in the first 2 rounds. The fact that they got both of them, and they both ended up becoming Rookie of the Year finalists in 2024, and then you get Jalix Hunt in round 3, a traitsy edge rusher. Those are the kind of prospects that I love. 4 years in a row, I think the dream scenario played out. If that happens again in 2025, I feel like we all have different draft dreams. We all want different things out of this class. We all prioritize different positions. We all have different My Guy prospects. By the way, the My Guy show, it is coming up, by the way, tomorrow, so that episode will drop. But for me, here would be my dream draft for the Eagles, at least with their first 3 picks. And I'm sure you guys have different ones, so let me know what your dream draft is. At Locked On Birds on X, at DiBiase LOE, Locked On Eagles on YouTube. Post it in our community page. My dream first 3 picks for Philadelphia, my dream scenario would be for James Pearce, the edge rusher out of Tennessee, to fall in their lap at 32nd overall, just like Quinyon Mitchell did last year, just like Nolan Smith did in 2023. If James Pearce falls, like, he is one of my favorite prospects in this class. He might be my favorite prospect. That's reasonable for Philadelphia. Of course, if Abdul Carter was in range, he would be up there for me. And, Jalen Walker, Mikael Williams. I just don't think there's any chance the Eagles can realistically move up to get those guys or have them fall in their lap at 32. I think there's little to no chance. Never say never, but I think it's close to 0% chance. James Pearce, I thought for a while, there's no way unless you get inside the 20, that 15 to 20 range. If you get inside there, you'll have a chance at James Pearce, but even if he does drop a little bit because of some concerns about his immaturity off the field, there's no way he falls beyond the 20th overall pick. Now, I'm not so sure. I think this is actually a realistic possibility. Looking at consensus mock drafts, there's a couple NFL analysts on Twitter that collect like the consensus mocks and say where each player, their average pick is. And James Pearce originally was like a top 10, top 15, at least a top 20 overall selection. Now, in most mocks, his consensus right now, I believe, is 36th overall. A lot of analysts at different platforms, whether it's NFL Network, ESPN, CBS, I mean, you name it, The Ringer, James Pearce, a lot of these experts who have like inside sources kind of have a good idea of what's coming up in the NFL draft, have James Pearce falling. So I think it's possible, and maybe the Eagles don't like him either, but if he falls in their lap at 32, unless there's these massive concerns about him off the field where he's just a detriment to the locker room, you have to take that chance at 32 with his overall explosiveness off the line of scrimmage, that just natural pass rushing talent. Outside of Abdul Carter, I think James Pearce is the most gifted, talented, most natural pass rusher of anybody in this loaded class. So for me, that's my dream scenario, is that James Pearce, and it was close. I was considering it's either him or Walter Nolan falling in their lap at 32. But for me, my dream scenario on day one, my new version of Quinyon Mitchell last year falling in their lap, where I was almost crying tears of joy last year when Quinyon fell to Philadelphia. For me, that would be James Pearce falling to 32. And when guys unexpectedly fall, yeah, there's normally a reason. There should be some concerns. But a lot of the time when a player falls to the birds unexpectedly, it tends to work out. The last 2 years, you've gotten 3-4 studs in the first 2 rounds on your defense that fell unexpectedly, and it all worked out. Jalen Carter fell. Nolan Smith fell. Quinyon Mitchell fell. Cooper DeJean fell into the second round. You traded up for him, and it worked out. Quinyon Mitchell worked out. Nolan Smith worked out. Jalen Carter worked out. I would even say Devontae Smith fell to you in 2021. I was surprised he fell all the way to that pick where the Eagles can then trade up with the New York Giants, or not the Giants, with the Dallas Cowboys. They stole Devontae from the Giants. That was a steal as well. When guys fall, yes, there's normally reasons for it. There's sometimes cause for concern. But a lot of the time when Philly takes that risk on a player, it tends to work. So if James Pearce is there, unless, again, like you have just these inside sources, if you have this experience with him from interviews, you talk to guys at Tennessee, and you think he's just a nightmare, then of course you don't take him. But I don't think that's going to be the case. And I think the Eagles are set up to take chances sometimes on just natural, more immature young guys because of how strong their locker room is, how strong the maturity of this roster is, not from top to bottom, not just the older veterans like Lane Johnson, but the young guys as well. They will hold him accountable. So unless there's like legal concerns, which I haven't heard anything about that kind of stuff with James Pearce, then you take him. For me, you take him at 32. So continuing my dream draft, the first 3 ideal picks for the Eagles in 2025. Again, number 1, James Pearce falling to the Eagles with the 32nd overall pick. The second rounder that I want more than anybody, you guys have heard me talk about him a lot, it's Penn State safety Kevin Winston Jr., and I think he's very likely to be available with that 64th overall selection. I think you could guarantee at least 3 safeties go ahead of him. Malachi Starks is going in the first round. I think so is Nick Emenwari. So those 2 are going on day 1. I think Xavier Watts out of Notre Dame could be a late first-round pick or an early second-rounder. Like that interception production, it's going to make him go early in the second round at the latest. And then I think it's kind of a toss-up between Andrew Makuba from Texas, Kevin Winston Jr. from Penn State, Jahdae Barron as well, depending on what position you see him playing at the next level. I think then it's kind of a toss-up. I think Winston Jr. will fall to the Eagles pick, or maybe they have to trade up a little bit, but he's my ideal second selection. And you guys know why I like him: the tackling, the range, the speed, the coverage ability against tight ends, like the length. I think he's a very complete safety that just needs a little bit of seasoning in coverage. I think with controlling himself, kind of like Sidney Brown with his range. But overall, I think Kevin Winston Jr. has all the traits to be a star safety. And when the Eagles have made or won Super Bowls in the 21st century, they have made 4 Super Bowls in the 21st century. They have won 2 of them. It's not a coincidence. All of those years, they had a star safety on defense, at least one. Brian Dawkins, Malcolm Jenkins, Rodney McLeod, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. I don't think it's a coincidence at all that they've had good safety play every single time they've made a championship, and it's the biggest hole in their defense right now. So Kevin Winston Jr. is my dream second-round pick. And then my dream third-rounder, and again, this is a dream outcome. I don't know if this is going to be realistic, but it could be. It's within reason. My dream is within reason. It's not like I want Abdul Carter and I want James Pearce and, I want Malachi Starks. No, it's within reason. My dream third-round pick, and I could see him falling just based on the risk, is Deion Walker from Kentucky. The 6'7", 310-plus pound defensive tackle that is super explosive off the line of scrimmage, had a 7.5 sack 3 with over a 7-foot wingspan. He's kind of a last second my guy for me. Deion Walker was not really on my radar compared to other defensive tackle prospects, but he is now. And I just think when you get into the third round and later in drafts, take unique players. Take a guy like this, put him next to Jordan Davis on the defensive line. How are you getting up the middle against this defensive line with Deion Walker and Jordan Davis next to each other? So I just think bet on the traits. Clint Hurt, I really think could do a good job developing him. And he has superstar potential. Like, he has unworldly potential. His floor is a lot lower than some of these other tackles, but that might be why he falls to the third round, and that would be my dream third pick. So those are my top 3 ideal, best-case scenario selections for the Eagles this year. James Pearce, Kevin Winston Jr., and Deion Walker. All right, guys, coming up next right here on the Locked On Eagles podcast, to get some of these players to trade up in the draft, the Eagles might have to part ways with Dallas Goedert. We got an update on Goedert's trade status, and I have some ideas to move him on day 1 or day 2 of the draft. What teams could be interested? We'll get into it coming up next right here on the Locked On Eagles podcast. This Thursday edition of the Locked On Eagles podcast is brought to you by Gametime. There's nothing like the atmosphere of an NBA playoff game. Every bucket, every defensive stop, every moment feels huge. It's electric in the arena. I went to a Cavaliers-Knicks playoff game a couple years ago, and it was unbelievable. The war back and forth. A ton of Knicks fans in there. Obviously, a ton of Cavaliers fans. It was an unreal experience. There's nothing like the NBA playoffs. And with Gametime, you could be a part of it without the stress of last-minute ticket hunting. Gametime makes it fast and easy to get playoff tickets, even when demand is sky high. Prices on the app, they actually go down as tip-off gets closer, and their last-minute deals can save you up to 60%. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use our code in all capital letters, Locked On NFL. You're going to get $20 off your first purchase of playoff hoop tickets. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code Locked On NFL, LOCKEDON NFL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Thanks so much for making Locked On Eagles your first listen each and every day. So we did get an update today on the Dallas Goedert trade status. Jordan Schultz reports that the Eagles are still listening to trade offers. We know earlier this week that a report came out the New York Giants have inquired about Dallas Goedert. Don't love sending him inside the NFC East. I don't want to trade him at all. Sending him inside the NFC East would drive me nuts unless you're getting Kayvon Thibodeau back in that deal, which maybe is possible if the Giants draft Abdul Carter across from Brian Burns. I don't know. It's definitely possible. But anyway, Dallas Goedert on the trade block. It does sound like, according to Jordan Schultz, the Eagles might be willing to accept draft capital from 2026 to part with Dallas Goedert. They don't have to get picks back in 2025. I hate it. Like, I am not a fan of this at all. I think it would be a mistake to trade Goedert, especially for picks in 2026 or 2027. Like, just think about it. They already have almost 20 selections in the draft in these next 2 classes. They have a boatload of day 3 picks, which is likely what you're going to get back for Dallas Goedert, a 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th rounder, like maybe a player back as well. They're not getting a 1st, a 2nd, or a 3rd rounder for a 30-year-old, normally injury-prone tight end for as good as Dallas Goedert is. So a day 3 pick for me just means nothing right now because the Eagles have so many of those selections as well. I just think unless Dallas Goedert refuses to play on his final year of his current contract and he wants a new deal now, and maybe this is the reality. Maybe he saw Trey McBride's contract extension with Arizona, getting $19 million a year. He says, I want that. I just had an incredible playoff run. I'm 30 years old. I want to get that payday now. I don't want to take the risk of playing on one final year. That normally is the case in the NFL, and if that's what's happening, I would understand why Philly wants to trade him, wants to move on. But if he is willing to make it work this year, and it sounds like from some reports that the Eagles are the ones that want him to take a pay cut on that last year of his deal like they made Josh Sweat do last year, which is insane to me. I would be very willing to just keep it the way it is right now if Goddard's willing to do that. No guaranteed money left on this contract. But the Eagles, it doesn't sound like they want to do that. I think they should. 1 year of Dallas Goedert as a rental in a Super Bowl window, to me, is far more valuable than a 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th round selection that you're going to get for him in 2026 when, big deal, you already have so many picks like that. You're going to get back a bunch of comp picks in the 3rd round from all of the free agents like Josh Sweat and Milton Williams and Mekhi Becton departing this year. So for me, again, who knows? It's hard to really have a strong opinion on this situation because we don't know all the details, but that's why I'll give you two different sides of the coin. If Dallas Goedert will not play on this final year of his deal, then I understand Philly's approach. If he is willing to make it work, if he would play on the current salary that he's getting, but the Eagles want him to take a pay cut, then they're the ones making a mistake. That's just the way I see it. I could see them, however, try a different avenue to trade Dallas Goedert. Maybe it's not by getting a draft pick back in 2026. Maybe it's not by getting a draft pick back in 2025. What if they try to use Dallas Goedert to trade up in the 1st or 2nd round of this year's draft? Like, what if they try to use him as a piece instead of giving up a 3rd round selection or a 4th round pick this year? They used Goedert as a form of ammunition to trade up on day 1 or day 2. I could totally see it. And there's actually 3 teams that I think would be very interested in Goedert in a potential trade up in the 1st round. The first team, and all of these teams are picking in the 20s. Playoff teams that could use like one more piece. The first team I look at is the team that first cracks the bottom 20 of the 1st round, the Denver Broncos, with the 20th overall selection. Outside of Cortland Sutton, Bo Nix really does not have a lot to work with in that offense from a personnel standpoint. It's really impressive how good he was as a rookie. Now, Sean Payton's an incredible play caller, but Cortland Sutton is a really underrated receiver in the NFL, but they need more. And the fact that he brought them to the playoffs is impressive. If they want him to take another step in year 2, getting a guy like Dallas Goedert that's been shown to elevate quarterback play. He helped Carson Wentz out a ton. He helped out Nick Foles a ton. And, of course, Jalen Hurts. Like, he has been Jalen Hurts' safety blanket over the middle of the field, in the clutch, in the playoffs. Dallas Goedert is Jalen Hurts. Like, that's his go-to, is Dallas Goedert in sometimes big situations. Just look at that Green Bay Packers game. Just look at the Super Bowl even a couple years ago. In Super Bowl 57, all the tough grabs Goedert made. I could totally see Denver wanting a player like that in their offense for Bo Nix, especially a team that runs a lot of play action. They can get him, and Sean Payton's good at getting guys open in space. Dallas Goedert, such a run-after-the-catch weapon. I could totally see Denver being interested, and maybe the Eagles say, hey, we'll give you Dallas Goedert in the 32nd overall pick, and maybe they do throw him like a 4th or 5th rounder, and then Denver allows the Eagles to come up 12 spots, and boom, that's how you land Josh Simmons from Ohio State. That's how you land Walter Nolan from Ole Miss, or James Pearce from Tennessee, or God forbid Mikael Williams from Georgia fell, or Malachi Starks. Whoever you want to trade up for, maybe it's with Denver. Maybe not. Maybe it's with the Los Angeles Chargers with that 22nd overall pick. LA is another team in that AFC West that has a franchise quarterback they're trying to build around better than they did last year. A team that made it to the playoffs despite not having a lot of weapons. The Chargers have a stud in Ladd McConkey heading into year 2. Outside of that, Justin Herbert's go-to guy last year was Will Dissly at tight end. I could totally see Jim Harbaugh, who again runs the football more than most teams in the NFL, runs a lot of play action, wanting an elite blocking tight end like Dallas Goedert, who's also a menace deep, a menace runner to the catch, the screen game, a big body, can go up and high point the football, a good contested catch player. Like, he's a complete player. If the Chargers want to take another step, they have to, like Denver, they have to add another weapon. It's not a coincidence. A lot of those teams that lost early in the playoffs just didn't have those go-to alphas for their star quarterback. The Chargers didn't have that. The Broncos didn't have that. They could use somebody like Dallas Goedert. Similar situation. Maybe you move up 10 spots, you give up 32, you give up Goedert, you give up a day 3 pick, and that's how you go get the prospect that you really want to target. Another team in the 20s that might be interested in Goedert, and again, I don't love this one as much because I think this team is a direct competitor of yours in the NFC this year to get to the Super Bowl 60. It's the Los Angeles Rams. But I could see the Rams being interested. With the 26th overall selection, I could see them saying, hey, we'll move down 6 spots. We love to collect mid-day picks, mid-round picks anyway. That's where their bread and butter is. Like, they are really good in the 3rd to 7th round of the draft. That's how they really rebuilt their front 7 on defense. And I could see Sean McVay really wanting Dallas Goedert. He loves those inline explosive weapons that are really good blockers and really good run after the catch gadget players. Normally that's been a receiver like Cooper Kupp or Puka Nacua. Maybe that's a tight end this time for Sean McVay and Dallas Goedert. I could see the Broncos, Chargers, and Rams. Those are the 3 teams I'm saying. If the Eagles use Goedert to trade up, those are the 3 most likely teams to target on day 1. The Broncos, the Chargers, and the Rams. All right, guys, coming up next right here on the Locked On Eagles podcast, I want to continue this trade talk. We really haven't discussed Bryce Huff in a while. What's going on with his contract situation, his status for 2025? Could he be a potential draft day trade? We'll get into it coming up right here on this Thursday edition of Locked On Eagles. This Thursday edition of Locked On Eagles is brought to you by LinkedIn. As a small business owner, your work doesn't end when the clock hits 5. No, it does not. Your business is always on your mind, which means when it's time to hire, you need a partner that works just as hard as you do. That's where LinkedIn Jobs comes in. When you're clocking out, LinkedIn clocks in. LinkedIn makes it easy to post your job for free, share it with your network, and get qualified candidates all in just one place. The Post Your Job feature is great. LinkedIn's new feature can help you write job descriptions and then quickly get your job in front of the right people with deep candidate insights. And here's a pro tip. Add the hashtag hiring frame to your profile picture to double your reach to qualified candidates. No wonder 72% of small businesses say LinkedIn helps them find high-quality hires. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions do apply. All right, we're wrapping up this Thursday edition of the Locked On Eagles podcast, talking trades. Dallas Goedert, maybe a draft day trade, whether it's next Thursday, Friday, or Saturday. I could see it getting done, and there are some cap implications if it's a post-June 1st cut or trade. It could free up some space for the Eagles in the 2026 offseason. I do think, though, they'd rather just eat the money this year. I think if a decision comes with Goedert, it will be next week. Whether it's during the draft, before, or after, I think a resolution is going to come soon. Or maybe they make it work. Maybe, I doubt there's an extension that comes, although I'd love Dallas Goedert here long term. Maybe, though, they make it work for a 1-year deal like they did with Josh Sweat last year. I think there was a period last year where we thought Josh Sweat was gone. He was going to get traded like Hassan Reddick did. Who knows? Goedert could fall in the Reddick category where he is dealt. It's a very similar situation. They're saying very similar things about Goedert they did about Reddick last year before he was traded. But at the same time, we thought the same about the Josh Sweat situation. He came back and was a main reason you won a championship. So it could go one way or the other. When it comes to Bryce Huff, he's the guy in the defense that's most likely to get traded away on draft day by Howie Roseman. And whether it's to collect a conditional day 3 selection, maybe Bryce Huff helps you move up. I really doubt it. But I can see a team being interested. He's only 2 years removed from being one of the most efficient pass rushers in the entire NFL. If Bryce Huff does get traded, I think it'll end up being for a conditional pick, a conditional day 3, like a 6th or a 7th that can turn into a 5th or a 6th. I think that's the most likely outcome. I don't think there's really a realistic chance that he is back in 2025. After signing Joshua Uche and Azeez Ojulari, I think Huff is likely gone. If they would have just brought in Uche and did not sign Ojulari, or they just signed Ojulari and not Uche, I would think differently of this situation. But you have Nolan Smith, you have Jalix Hunt, who you really are hoping emerges as that Josh Sweat replacement. He's your number 2 guy on the edge. You're hoping at least one of Ojulari and Uche become a more consistent player. Ojulari actually last year I thought was pretty solid as the 3rd pass rusher for the Giants. But Joshua Uche had a double-digit sack season in 2022, and ever since then has been a very up-and-down player. Those are 4 guys the Eagles are really hoping become A-plus players for this, or just a plus in the edge rotation. Is Bryce Huff going to be kept on as that 5th guy? I just can't imagine that. Like, to keep the health of the locker room, Bryce Huff is not going to be a happy player. I can't imagine they hang on to him unless he has a realistic chance and opportunity to beat out Uche or Ojulari as a top 4 guy in that rotation. But you also have to add into the fact of the matter that the edge class this year is so deep, and they're going to add another pass rusher. Maybe it's not in the 1st or 2nd round, but they are going to add an edge rusher in the top 5 rounds of this draft. Like, it's just too good of a class to come away with nobody. So that's a 5th player you're adding into this rotation or into this roster that's not Bryce Huff. Plus, you brought back Patrick Johnson, who has been an instrumental player on the special teams unit over the years and then played with the Giants in 2024. I just think the writing's on the wall, and I think you're beyond the point of return with Huff. Like, I think in a vacuum, if he was given as fair a chance to earn playing time as Ojulari was, as Uche was, as potentially a rookie would be, I think Huff could actually be as effective, if not more, than those guys. Like, he has had the same flashes in a pan as Ojulari has, as Uche has. Like, Huff, again, was putting up some elite, efficient pass rushing numbers with the Jets in 2022 and 2023. Like, it was no joke what he was doing in New York. There's a reason the Eagles paid him $16 million a year on a 3-year contract to replace Hassan Reddick. But again, I think when you add into everything you add in on the table, like bringing in both players, the depth of the class, and what happened last year, I just don't think it's going to happen that he's back. Like, Fangio's comments in the summer really affected, I think, Bryce Huff, talking about how Huff is not the player, pretty much insinuating he wasn't the player yet that they thought they were getting when they signed him. I think that got in Bryce Huff's head. Then the injury, then he's a healthy scratch in the Super Bowl. Like, that's a lot to come back from. And again, now you add the deep draft class and all the additions in free agency. I think the writing's on the wall. I think the Eagles will take pretty much whatever they can get for Bryce. And again, I think if they did bring him back and gave him a real chance that he could be an effective player this year, I think he was getting better after the bye week when he was healthy, when his hand was in the dirt, when his job was just to go get the quarterback in 3rd downs. I think he could be that role player he was with the Jets if he's not asked to be a full-time player. I just think that opportunity in Philly is gone. So I think he can do that with another team. I think another team should absolutely be interested in a buy low trade for Bryce Huff. I'd be all over it if I was a team that needs pass rushing help. But for Philadelphia, I don't know. I just feel like the writing's on the wall. I think you could see Bryce Huff getting traded next week as well as Dallas Goedert. All right, guys, that's going to do it for today's edition of the Locked On Eagles podcast. Thanks so much for tuning in and making us your first listen each and every day. Make sure your second listen is the Locked On NFL Draft podcast. 1 week away from the draft. Get ready with our guys, Damian Parsons and Keith Sanchez, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Louis DiBiase signing off. As always, thanks so much for downloading, watching, and listening, and let's go Birds. Fly, Eagles, fly.